Baba Kalyani also joins us now, Chairperson of Bharat Forge. Mr. Kalyani, thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to us at NDTV Profit. And what we're attempting to do in our coverage today is give our viewers a sense of who the man was. Of course, he's an icon, huge wealth creator, comes from one of the storied families of Indian business. But who was Ratan Tata, and what is your perspective of him?
To me, Ratan Tata was a man, when I look at it from today, was a man who really brought India together from a business perspective. And as the earlier speaker said, he also showed Indian business ways to globalize their business, ways to go out of India and build businesses. He really built a strong and a positive brand for India globally. But as a man, he was a man with a lot of humility. I have met him personally many, many times. I have known him for many years. And he was very open. Whenever I had a problem and I wanted to see him, he would give time. He would listen to me patiently. He would advise me. Many times he would tell me I was wrong in what I was thinking. But that was the kind of man he was. He was very candid, very straightforward, at the same time, very humane. And, you saw what happened in 2011 as to how Ratan Tata, under his leadership, the Taj Group managed that whole episode. They put people first, they valued their people, they valued their employees. And it was an amazing show of how true Indian nature and Ratan Tata's nature was.
Mr. Kalyani, good morning. Neeraj here, and just trying to understand what would be your favorite memories, because for us, the Taj moment or the great acquisitions that were done under his stewardship stand out. But you would have had personal moments. What have been the one or two most striking memories of yours?
Well, I have had many personal moments right from 2000. Right from, let's say, prior to 1991, when he took over Tata Sons as chairman. I've been going to the Bombay house for the last 50 years almost. But a couple of my experiences, personal experiences, we traveled to Washington together as a delegation of Dr. Manmohan Singh that time, the Indian delegation, to discuss the nuclear deal with the United States. And we flew from London to Washington in the British Airways flight. I mean, one of the things I found about Ratan Tata is he was like an ordinary person. When he came to an airport, when he got his ticket, got his boarding pass, everything was like normal, like all of us do. And when we landed in Washington, the immigration officer pulled him aside and took him to a room for questioning. And I tried to argue with the immigration officer about why he shouldn't be doing that to a person of that stature, but that's how the US immigration is. But that did not rattle Ratan Tata at all. He came out after an hour and he was as calm as ever. He was just saying that guy was doing his job and he was fine, and we just went to the hotel. So that was the person he was. He never got rattled. At the same time, he was pretty clear in terms of what he wanted to do, what he wanted to achieve. If he had a point of view, he would express his point of view very clearly, very candidly. And, that was the amazing part.
Mr. Kalyani, you talked about how you have spoken to him several times. You have, I'm sure, learned from him as well. What do you think is the biggest lesson for you as such a storied corporate leader that you have taken away from Ratan Tata? What is the one thing that you think you picked up from him and have implemented in your life?
I mean, the one thing that I picked up from him was the way he treated people. He was a great leader, never showed arrogance, always was humane, always showed humility, treated everybody equally. I think that is one of the greatest lessons that at least I have picked up from him.
Okay. Mr. Das, and thanks for waiting by patiently as well. Same question to you really, as you think about the moments that stand out in his storied journey. What are the one or two that stand out, whether personal or otherwise?
Yeah, well, one is I was on a board of one of the Tata companies, and he was an observer who came to attend the board meeting. And what I was struck was by his modesty, by not appearing to be self-important, and by listening to others, and also his dog appeared in the middle of the meeting. He used to sometimes bring his dog to Bombay House. And the dog went and sat very quietly by his feet without disturbing anyone. So that showed his love for pets. And I think an equally important moment for me was when I finally, there was a unhappy ending after he left. Which was when he turned the business over to Mystery, and that didn't work out. But what I'm happy about, what I really feel is an important lesson for India Incorporated, is that he brought in a professional, finally, Chandrasekaran. There were a number of candidates. They selected Chandrasekaran because he was running TCS, the biggest and the crown jewel of the business. And the fact is that they have turned it over now to a professional. And I cannot imagine another Tata person ever running the Tata Enterprises, $100 billion enterprise, $100 billion enterprise with 660,000 employees under a professional. Now, that is the inspiring lesson for India Incorporated, which has too many sons and incompetent nephews running the businesses. We don't want India Incorporated to become like Indian politics, run by dynasties. And this is an important lesson that anywhere any Indian company turns over their business finally to be run not by one of the family members, but by a professional. And that to me is the most inspiring lesson to take from the life and times of Ratan Tata.
Well put. To be fair, he did not have his own children who would have made claims. Perhaps that made it easier, but the vision definitely can be seen very clearly. Just want to understand about how his contribution to India, not just business. We look at business, but how contribution to nation building should be seen. And I want to come to Mr. Kalyani on this point. A sprawling conglomerate which has moved with the times, but at the heart of it seem to be businesses which work for the country. Do you think that that's a business model that can work even today?
I mean, as far as Ratan Tata is concerned, he always put India first, and therefore his sprawling businesses for him were kind of secondary. It was always India first. And you must remember that many of the businesses had a lot of headwinds during his tenure. Some of it what Gurucharan talked about, and some others. But he held on to that because he believed that it is good for India, that is good for the country. And that was his personal belief. I've been many times with him to meet our Honorable Prime Minister in a meeting. And I mean, he never talked about his own businesses. I've never seen him ever discuss what any of the Tata Group companies wanted. He always talked about what we need to do in the country. And that was his greatest, thought process, I would say, something that I really admire.
Yeah, most certainly, Mr. Kalyani. The other one question. I mean, you've spoken about the personal memory or the takeaway on a life lesson in terms of his behavior. I was just trying to understand, Mr. Kalyani. You are a very successful corporate leader yourself. In terms of somebody who took bets and stuck with them, even if not necessarily paying off in the immediate aftermath of the deal being done. I mean, JLR was a case in point. Are there lessons to be learned there too, sir?
Yeah, he taught many of us. I mean, his famous thing was there is no business where you can do it without taking risks. Risks are part of the business, and that was always his message to me whenever I met him. Whenever I went to discuss with him, I want to do something new. What do you think, Ratan? Is that a good idea? Uh, he would always tell me that if you have an idea, if you have a passion, you need to take risks and make it happen. And that was his philosophy. And if you look at all the new businesses that he built during his tenure, I mean, many of them had risk, but they became quite successful.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Where the overarching point was that does this work well for what the country needs rather than just the group and profitability? Having said that, do you think that the big legacy is also his interest in startups and new businesses? What has been the impression you've had from the philanthropic side of Mr. Ratan Tata's worldview?
His philanthropic side was one that he didn't talk about too much, neither did the Tata Group talk about too much. But we all know, I mean, he is one of the biggest philanthropists, or was one of the biggest philanthropists of India. The kind of things they have done for the society, whether it's in Jamshedpur, whether it's in Calcutta, building a hospital, for example. I mean, a place where they were thrown out of Singur for the Tata Nano plant, or whether it's doing things for sports, for children. I mean, the amazing work that the Tata group under Ratan Tata did in terms of philanthropy.